Want to invite two lovely women, wise and wonderful women, that are going to be speaking to me. Vikki has been my neighbor for quite a long time here. Also, we happen to have a strange connection in terms of my very first boss in real estate. Her sister is your stepmother, right? Is that crazy? So weird, so weird. Anyway, so Vikki Ziegler is also the founder of Ziegler Law Group. She spent 2 seasons on Bravo's Untying the Knot, for any of you that saw that, and the host of the new podcast, Love, Life, and Litigation. So Vikki, come on up. And Paulina. Paulina is a trusted family and matrimonial law attorney with 15 years experience in her field, also with the Ziegler Law Group, so come on up. So I think the whole kind of idea, and usually I will tell you that this room is packed to the gills. The reason why it's not is because the idea of divorce, it kind of like, I think, freaks people out.
Are you saying there's a low turnout tonight?
No, usually, no, I will tell you, no, there usually is. And the reason for that is because, well, anyway, I think it's so important that women, it's not something that is a negative thing to get your financial life in order and to go into something with your eyes wide open and having a dialogue. But we have talked about this for now 6 or 7 years. Women apologize. Women have a tendency to apologize for asking questions, questioning authority, speaking up, being assertive, which gets, being aggressive. So one of the things about going into a marriage and being kind of wanting a prenup is it pushes against what I think women have traditionally felt that they can do. I mean, and I don't know if you find that.
All right, so first of all, hi everybody. I'm thrilled to be here with my partner, Paulina Dostalik. Marriage is a interesting proposition for those who are walking down that road. So I think everybody should be talking about the uncomfortable subject, such as a prenup, marriage, divorce. If you don't, and my daughter's sitting here, by the way, she's 10. Her prenup is about 95 pages already. Okay, so to be afraid to think about the concept, we all work so hard to create generational wealth, and then you get married, you get divorced, and then all of a sudden you get married again and you think, oh my God, how do I protect my assets? So for me, and I guess it's because we love our subject matter so much, it's so critical for people to get educated that this room, there should be standing room only, because we need to get educated. And I talk about this all the time. Fear, you look at fear right in the eyes, you give it a wink, you get educated and you move on. Why would we be afraid to ask questions? The whole point of getting married is romance and love, but it's a business partnership. And anybody that tells you it's not, they're crazy. We see the reality, the underbelly of hell, we call it, every day. But it doesn't have to be that way if you protect yourself, if you get educated, if you ask the right questions. No question is a bad question. And what we do, Paulina and I find it to be one of the most critical components of setting somebody up for success when you're talking about a prenup. And we can go into it because I know Ann is very strict about her Q&A and said we have to keep it very short. And we're not short speakers, so I can stop it there, and then you can ask me another question, because I want to talk a lot.
Okay, we're good.
Because we don't have a lot of time, and these ladies, I want everybody to come out of this speaking engagement with something that affects them. So it's important for us to know who's married in this room. Please raise your hand high. Currently. Married on paper.
Well, nearly finalized divorce.
Okay, but you're still married.
Yeah.
Right? You're still married. Yeah. Almost divorced.
In the eyes of the state of New York or New Jersey.
Right. How many people are divorced?
Wow.
I will tell you that I used to keep a tally because there were, and we have 2,500 women, way over half of them are divorced.
How many are engaged right now? Oh, I love you.
No, good for you to be here. Good for you to be here. Actually, there was somebody who said their fiance suggested that they come here. So I forget who that was, but anyway, it's good.
Engaged?
No, my fiance suggested me to.
Oh, you're the one?
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
That, you know what? That is a confident partner. We love that.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so first of all, what do you want to be called? Because I think that the go-to is like the divorce attorney, but you're a matrimonial attorney. And I think that that's a much more positive, because you're trying to like put something together that honestly, I think in a lot of ways, if these discussions happen in advance, you have a much higher success rate.
Right, I mean, we're called a pit bull in heels, but go ahead.
I think we're relationship attorneys. It's any kind of relationship. It's relationships that are being brought together. It's relationships that are being dissolved. It's handling all sorts of different types of relationships. It's more than just marriage. People more and more these days are cohabitating together without getting married, which is very interesting. And there's things that you can do to protect yourself in those situations as well.
Okay, so give me an example of that, because my understanding is that, okay, I have a house and I think it's my house, but then I move in with somebody and they start to pay some expenses. They help me put in new windows, or they maybe occasionally pay a utility bill, or maybe even part of the mortgage. They all of a sudden can, is that my understanding?
Well, you're dating, right? That's the scenario right now?
We are living together, we are not married, let's say.
So if you don't have a cohabitation agreement, Paulina's going to explain it to you. And a cohabitation agreement is a real contract that people should think about if they don't want to get married. You have, children in the 20s and 30s who want to live together. They want to know if the toilet seat comes up or down, during the week, and, if they're right for each other and they're testing it out. But if you don't have a cohabitation agreement,
If you don't have a cohabitation agreement, that property, you don't have rights in that property. You may be able to assert a claim in a partition action, which is an equitable remedy where it's an equitable remedy where you are saying that I have contributed either financially, actually paying towards this mortgage or towards this property, or maybe you have put in sweat equity. You have remodeled, you have raised the value of this property in just through your efforts. And so you then bring a partition action, it's a technical term for it, where you are asking the court to say, even though I don't have a legal contractual right to this property, I should have an interest in it, or the court should equitably give me some interest in this property because of the efforts or the financial contributions that I have made towards this property.
and remember, there's no common law marriage in New York or in New Jersey. So if somebody says, well, wait a second, we've been living together, we're like a married couple. No, but you can try to make a claim for palimony, but
Not
that's
the state of New York.
and no longer in the state of New York. In New Jersey, it's a little, I say it's much harder. Much
It was like
harder.
a thing in California for a while.
Yeah,
It
so
was like a
people
thing.
hear these terms and
Right.
like, oh, I'm just going to argue that I'm married and it's under common law. No, that doesn't exist. So it's important for people to understand, if you don't have a contract, the sky and landscape is wide open.
So are the protections that you have going into a first marriage, are they different than going into a second marriage? I mean, where do you see those differences? Because I would think that you don't have kids, you don't have maybe a lot of assets going in, but
You have a lot of
second
debt
marriage-
in the first time around.
Right, exactly. So
Potentially.
how are the protections different from a first marriage to a second marriage?
I think the first marriage is exactly how you described. Most people don't have much, some have college debt, and they're just trying to find their way, and they don't have children yet. Second time around, it's a different ballgame. You have children, maybe they're getting married, that you have grandchildren, and you want to specifically leave your assets to those children, not your spouse's children. And inheritance law is very different and very important for people to understand when they're getting married. So everyone says, oh, a prenup is only about dividing assets. Wrong. It's about dividing assets, dealing with alimony, and dealing with death. And in conjunction with that, estate planning is critical.
Right, exactly. So in doing my estate recently, what the suggestion was that I set up a trust, and when the girls would get, let's say it was $1 million, right? So each of them gets $1 million, and that they keep it in a trust, because if they go to buy a house, they get married, they go to buy a house, what my will states is that $1 million has to stay in the trust, and the house has to be bought in the name of the trust. Because that way, it's also a gift to her, which I'm not putting her in a position where there's money and she's got it, it's very clear. You want to use it, you go ahead and you keep it so that it can't be touched.
So let's Paulina, we're going to give an example of how Ann needs to protect her assets if she gets married. Because I already found 6 loopholes based on what you just told us. So if you get married and you think you've insulated your daughter 100%, you have not.
Well, I'm just talking about, am I insulating my daughter? I'm not insulating.
As long as you're single, yes, when she gets married.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I'm talking about when she gets married, we found 5 loopholes already.
Okay, and what are those 5 loopholes? Okay.
Paulina's gonna tell you, and then I'll tell you my loopholes.
Hold on.
I can't tell you all my loopholes. I'm gonna tell you a few of my loopholes.
Okay. What are 3 things that someone needs absolutely to have a prenuptial agreement for a first marriage, and how is it different, would you say, for a second marriage? What would differ or be added to that in a second marriage?
I think for a second marriage, generally speaking, we're talking about already established wealth. So you want something that is protecting the wealth that you've already built, versus a first marriage where you are still in the wealth building stage of the relationship. I also think that in a second marriage, the estate planning provisions come much more into play. There's usually children from prior relationships, and how much do you want the assets that you've worked very hard already to attain to stay with those children versus to be distributed in this new relationship. I also think that for a second marriage, there could be more later in life planning, such as what's going to happen if one of us has significant medical needs? Who is going to take care of, let's say you have a husband who maybe there's an age gap, where you talk about if there's going to be an age gap and we're keeping our money separate and apart, are we using your money to take care of you medically, or are we using my money, or are we using our money collectively?
And who's
to
making
take
those
care of that?
decisions?
And who's making those decisions?
A medical directive is critical.
Are the children coming in and I have to play nice with the children potentially, or is this a decision that we're going to make as husband and wife? So I think that there potentially with second marriages too, you might be coming in where you are already have received spousal support from a first marriage potentially. And then there's a conversation about entering into the second relationship, and what does that look like? Am I giving up the spousal support that I'm receiving from the first marriage?
One of the things that we've talked about here, and it has to do with this, but it doesn't have to do with this, is ladies, if you do not pay your husband's life insurance policy yourself that's on him, you're making a big mistake. I cannot tell you how many women have come to me and the husband was supposed to be taking care of it. He drops dead and there is no life insurance policy because he stopped paying it. And if you want that money, you need to take responsibility for paying it.
Well, you should also be the owner of the policy, so you have control over it.
Right.
And I think that's important. I think, a first-time marriage, we may postpone alimony, we may defer it because we don't know who's going to make what. Is the woman going to stay home or the man? Second marriages, you may have somebody that's 67 that's already retired, so we don't really have to negotiate alimony. But in our agreements, when people get divorced, we place that if somebody does not maintain life insurance and they're responsible, that we can sue their estate and make sure that the woman, let's say, who's entitled to the life insurance would get those proceeds. Right. So there's so many different ways to protect people, but I think prenuptial planning is one of the most critical things that people talk about, that discuss that it's unromantic, and I find it necessary. There's not one person that has ever come to me, first marriage, second marriage, where I said, you don't need a prenup. I have never said that.
It's actually quite romantic when you think about it. You are planning your life. You're having this discussion. You are planning your life in the stage of your relationship where you're supposed to be the most in love, yes, the happiest. It's a time where you want to be the most fair. These are not conversations you want to save when things maybe have gone south. Right. You want to have this conversation. How do you want to treat me in our best days? What do we want this to look like in our best days? Not what do we want this to look like when we hate each other.
Right, and when we say let's get naked, we don't mean physically, but we support that. It's really emotionally and financially, because the skeletons need to roll out of the closet before you walk down the aisle. And we see so many people planning for one day, the wedding, but they don't plan for their future. And it always behooves me when people come to us, they don't have a prenup, they don't have a postnup. And what is a postnup?
Right, that's what I was gonna say. So now you're married, and now you realize I didn't do the prenup. So how often, I mean, in terms of your practice, is it mostly divorces, prenups? Like, are you seeing more prenups, and are you seeing more postnups?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
I think more women are earning more and they're protecting their assets. So we see a lot of women asking for prenups. This is wedding season, so we're doing 20 a month, which is a lot. I think postnuptial agreements are a bit dangerous because you have to have financial disclosure and there has to be consideration. So
What do you mean by that?
we don't love drafting postnuptial agreements when one person's saying, sign this or I'm leaving you. It doesn't work well in a courtroom. So we try to...
But if you just decide together, and there isn't kind of a gun to your head, and you get together and you say, listen, we didn't do this, we really should, or...
We'll draft an agreement. What we call it is a strategic move. Whether we call it a settlement agreement versus a postnuptial agreement, we negotiate and decide what's best for the client. Because sometimes we negotiate documents that we don't want to hold up secret. We do that. So sometimes it may not behoove our client for this agreement to be effectuated and enforced. So maybe we don't want to fight too hard because we know it may get set aside. We generally don't like to do that. But there are times when somebody has 400 million and our client has 10,000 in the bank. Okay, we may have the ability and some wiggle room to be able to fight that down the road. So we don't love them, and courts don't like to really enforce them.
Okay.
They're much more scrutinized.
How much, if somebody has a, not a huge estate, it's not complicated, you've got two early 30s getting married, how much should a prenup about cost?
It's a loaded question. The how much and the how long are two impossible questions. There are way too many variables. For the reason being, if there are two people who are coming to us and they have legitimately had a lot of the conversations before coming to us, that's a fairly easy process.
You want hard numbers?
Yeah.
Okay, 7,500. It could be more, depending. We just got a prenup that was 89 pages.
Yeah, I mean, God.
Sophie's, yours is more, but this one's, she's looking at me like she doesn't know. You know what I'm talking about. And that's a very complicated $150 million estate. So that's a $25,000 matter because we're reviewing trusts, trust on trust on trust. There's about 7,000 apartments. So it's very complicated. And honestly, after I read it, I was like, you know what? Said to my client, you get nothing.
Right,
How does that sound?
right.
I want to fight. And then I gave her an a la carte menu of all the things I would fight for. And she said, I'll only do one of them. I'm only going to ask for one thing. I don't want to rock the boat.
That's right, there's a lot of not wanting to rock.
So what do? I write a letter explaining that this is against my advice because I don't want anyone coming back to us down the road and saying, Vikki, why didn't you tell me? No, I told you. And if you want to freeze your eggs and we want to talk about complicated things that happen down the road, where are you living? It's in your partner's name, not yours. Can she kick you out? Yes, you have 30 days to get out. That's one thing that I would definitely discuss in the second marriage versus a first marriage. That's a real issue if you don't have children or you do have children.
So I've got a friend of mine who's part of this group, and she's married to someone, she's early 80s, but her husband is 93, right? And they've been married now for 35 years, but it's a second marriage. And in that prenup, it said that an apartment that he had owned or they bought, I know he had it before, that's right. And so he said, my kids get this house and, you'll have to leave. But it's now 35 years later.
Was there a sunset clause, which means
Well-
that the prenup is null and void after a certain time?
No. So,
She had a bad lawyer.
Well, right. So anyway, so she has actually gone back to him because she said to him, I'm going to lose you. I've been married to you for 35 years. Now I'm going to leave my home and, or I don't need to, in 30 days. So anyway, they are now going back and having the discussion about how they handle it. But that's the point. 35 years later, it does, of course, you want to make sure that your kids are taken care of and you have this apartment, but there are things that a very good lawyer, obviously, as you both are, can say that I would never think of. You know, what happens if a sunset clause is
So what-
a perfect example.
Tell her to discard all the copies of that prenup.
So if you put language that you get to live there until you die, which is called the life estate, that would have insulated her from having to leave ever, but he gets the benefit because his children will get the asset. That is something very
her death,
critical
yeah.
that we do a lot. I just negotiated one and I made these changes. The husband refused, the fiance refused. They got married Saturday morning with changes that I did not approve of. And I said, that's fine, you signed it, I told you not to. And she asked me on Monday, can I get an annulment? I said, sure, if you don't want to stay married, but you know, think about it. You have some time, think about it for the week and come back to us.
Oh my God, seriously. Oh my God, okay. I want to talk about healthcare because one of the, we had a patient advocate, Anne Marie, if anybody has any kind of medical thing going on that they need help or to find the right, you know, protocol in Germany for some god-awful disease, or even I need help navigating a certain health crisis. She's terrific, and when she got the invitation to this, she couldn't make it, drive home the importance of healthcare. So for instance, my children were being, in my divorce agreement, they were on their dad's insurance. Well, then dad left his job. And that there was no, and also he was supposed to have life insurance and keep it, and then didn't. So what am I, like, I should have had that policy, because if I did, I could have taken the money out, but he just stopped paying it. So what was I gonna do, right? So anyway, but health insurance can absolutely wipe you out. So she just, you know, so how do you cover that, especially later in life when maybe people aren't working, or you were married and you were under somebody's health insurance, and or you want to move to another state. The only health care available to you, because now you're not working, is like the equivalent of like an Obamacare, right? So how do you address that?
You negotiate a subsidy for continued for continued health insurance. You can't negotiate the right to remain on somebody's health insurance post-divorce. That's federal law, it's insurance laws, that's not something you can work around, but you can negotiate for a financial subsidy as part of your prenuptial agreement or as part of your divorce, where you are receiving a set sum of money aside from spousal support, or
Is that
different
is that
from.
taxable?
It wouldn't be under the circumstances. It would not be a taxable amount of money, and it would be money that would specifically be earmarked for you to obtain like-kind health insurance coverage.
And in smart prenups, for second marriages and even first, we negotiate for every year you're married. If we represent the woman that's not working, you have insurance paid for every year you're married.
That's right.
That is something we don't see often, and it's exactly to your point when we see this issue occur. Also, changing your beneficiary designations, changing your insurance designations, your proxy, your medical proxy. We had a case where the parties were getting divorced and the wife had a brain injury and the husband was making medical decisions. And do you think he was making wise decisions on behalf of his, what? 100%. You're laughing,
Yeah.
Totally. He was like, she doesn't need to be intubated, she's fine. So we had to run to court to ensure that she was gonna be saved. And that is a really important component, power of attorney. Oh, you forget that you have one, and all of a sudden your money's getting siphoned out of bank accounts because you didn't change it. But these are things that people don't realize to do when you're going through a divorce, when things are rough. These are your checklist items that we generally go over with people. And it's important, whether you're getting divorced, you're getting married for a second time, we have to ensure that not only are the family law issues being considered, it is your estate issues as well.
There's a lot of estate issues. Okay, so when you say, when you say 5 things that a woman should have in a prenup, are those things any different for a man? And what are those 5 things? I mean, what are the most important?
The law is gender neutral.
That's right.
And so it doesn't really matter. It's who's the breadwinner. That's it. And do we love when women pay alimony? Sorry for the 3 men in the room. No, we don't. But if you're making more, you may have to pay. So that, to me, is something, it won't matter who we're drafting it for, and we draft it for a lot of men who hook up with a stripper and all of a sudden have a child, and they don't want to get married, but they want to pressure them to be married, or we have a very rich businessman, or we have a very rich woman who's a business owner. It really depends, not on the gender, who is making the money and what assets do they have.
I think the bigger question, or the overarching question, is anyone going to take a back seat in terms of their career planning, their career trajectory, their wealth building, whatever gender you are? So if you are a female and you're going to be taking care of the children primarily, that's something that should be considered in a prenuptial agreement. That's something that you should plan for. You should make sure that the residence in which you raise your children, you are going to get to retain and continue to live in with your children. So you are not being put out on the street in the process. You should make sure that you have health insurance provisions. You should make sure that there's potentially college funds for your children, things of that nature. But it really just depends on, that's the part of the planning. If we are going to have family building, is anyone going to be taking time off? And how am I going to be compensated for that?
And for me, I think for all the people that are engaged right now, in a lot of the newer prenups that I've been doing the last couple of years, I mandate if somebody is going to buy a property, title is critical. It's not that you're tenants by the entirety or that they're going to be in joint name. It's with right of survivorship. Yeah. So what does that mean? People die, accidents happen, and you would inherit that house. If you don't have it with rights of survivorship, all of a sudden, whoever the person, your spouse passes away, they have children, they're inheriting 50% of the house, because most prenuptial agreements waive the right to the elective share, which means you cannot inherit from somebody else's separate assets. And that's a really important component, because where you live is the heart of your home. That's where you go every day. Nobody wants to be displaced. So title in the home is very important. Alimony, are you waiving it? Are you deferring it? What are you doing about that? That has to be in every single prenuptial agreement. We talked about life insurance, what is separate and what is joint. Everyone has to be clear. We were talking at the table earlier, and one of your lovely ladies, wise women, asked a question. What happens if somebody leaves somebody an asset that's inherited? You leave your daughter an inherited house, okay? And she says, oh great, my mom's also giving me some money from the house and I'm putting it in joint name with my spouse. That's called commingled. That means that don't do it. Keep it in separate name, because the minute you take Ann's money and put it in a joint account that's inherited, that's an asset that gets divided 50-50.
But when I was saying before, so now she buys the house and it's in her name, but now some of the running costs of the house are is that commingling as well?
Is she married or is she living with someone?
I don't know.
That's a difference.
You tell me.
There's a big distinction.
Okay. So
that's also something that
so how is it different? Tell me how it would be different.
Well, first, I think that's also something, the importance of prenuptial agreements. You can not only have anything that I inherit, but also you can specifically say that even if you put money into it, it's still going to be my separate property, regardless of whether you're contributing to the mortgage or you've renovated the bathroom, whatever, you buy the windows, whatever you've done, this is going to be my separate property no matter what. That's something that you can contractually protect for. And layer upon layer, you can say when we sell this place, if we sell this place, if I'm going to use the proceeds from the sale of this place to buy the next place, that's still going to be separate property. It can continue for layers upon layers, and that's so important.
And people can still contest that, but the bottom line is if you have it in place.
Good luck.
Right, exactly.
And in your trust, it should say, if it doesn't, that if you leave your daughter the home and any other assets, and she gets married and then she gets divorced, he cannot go after it. You can put it in your trust, because trust, the corpus of a trust is insulated, but the income that's derived can be used for support purposes. So that's an important component for your daughter to understand.
Step back for a second. In the trust, I have a house, let's say. So what do you mean in terms of the income from the trust?
So you're giving her a house, but does she get any other income distributed to her from your trust?
I mean, I'm just saying, just.
If you do, let's just say she gets 100,000 a year. You do very well. But she gets 100,000 a year.
I
Okay.
would not be getting $100,000 a year.
I'm giving an example, right? She gets 100,000 a year and she gets married with no prenup. And her husband says, I'm a stay-at-home dad, you need to go work. So she gets 100,000 from you, she makes 100,000, she's paying alimony to him if they get divorced. You haven't insulated her just by virtue of her getting the money. If she had a prenuptial agreement in place, everything would be insulated, and any income and the corpus of the trust would not be subject to distribution. She wouldn't share it in the event of divorce. She wanted to because she loves him. That's a different story.
Okay, so very important to summarize. Very important for you to do your estate planning with a marital attorney to be able to figure out those assets that you have now, twisted in the wind to make sure are protected and to give, to make sure that they really are protected. And it really is, again, a way that you can make sure that your kids are also just like, this is what my mom wanted, or my dad wanted, or my parents wanted, right?
To be very clear, the prenuptial agreement is a good first step. You always need to do that in conjunction with a estate planning attorney.
And is there somebody that you work hand in hand with?
Yes, and they're married. You can't do one without the other.
Agreed.
Honestly, we would not be doing our job and a service to the clients that we talk to all of you lovely women here. It's critical, and people just don't understand what goes into the planning. It's who do you want to leave your jewelry to? Who do you want to leave your assets to specifically? Do you want to give somebody all of your money? You want to give them only $10,000 a month?
Right.
Right? You have to limit it. That's an important component that I know our ladies at my table were very curious about.
Do you want to make sure that the life insurance that you've negotiated for goes in a life insurance trust instead of directly out to the owner?
My mom passed away a couple of years ago and wrote very clearly and told us in advance. And I remember her saying this, and it sounded so crazy. She said, I'm leaving, there were 2 stepkids, right? And so my dad had been married, he had 2 children, then she had us. And she said, I'm leaving you money for you, that's it, it's very clear. And then when your dad, and so I thought that was a little strange, like, why was she not? And she said, your father can go on to get married and have 10 more kids, even if he's 85. Well, my dad now at 90 has a girlfriend, and they ran out and decided to do a commitment ceremony. And I am now actually realizing that it might have actually been a marriage. This is just a recent thing.
And you can be disinherited, and it's something
Yes,
that most
exactly.
people don't realize
That's absolutely
can
right.
happen without important strategic planning.
That's right.
We see it all the time, and people say, let's contest it. Well, you're gonna have a hard time.
Right, exactly. So the money she left me, we got. There's now money on the table that was supposed to be for us. There might be a new wife in town. So anyway, yeah.
Not
She
uncommon.
introduced herself at the hospital as his wife. Okay. Anyway, that's just new.
That happens.
Anyway,
We've
all
seen
good.
it all.
Yeah, okay, so-
There is nothing we haven't
Okay,
seen.
so speaking about seeing it all.
Yes.
And you do have your husband and child in the room, but I was going to ask you this. How does this change, and you're married as well?
I am.
Okay. So, yeah, exactly.
No, you've heard it all. We've been together for 20 years. He knows everything.
How does it, because this would be like, I would think, being a doctor and, then feeling like I've got all these dread diseases because you're seeing people have all of these things that never should happen and then do.
I could say I've learned so much from my clients as a young attorney.
Does it make you jaded? Does it make you, when Bill is like, are you like checking his phone? Like you're like, I mean,
Oh,
like,
no.
No.
No,
No.
I'm not saying about this
No, no.
personally, but I'm saying as a job.
He wouldn't do that.
That comes to.
I think it's actually more encouraging for communication. I think that a lot of the issues that we see from prenuptial agreement planning to going through a divorce comes down to poor communication or complete lack of communication. Maybe I'm a hopeless romantic despite what I do for a living. I've been with my husband for 23 years. We've been married for 16 of those. And I think it's really just encouraged better, more direct communication. I think that's the lesson behind it all. I
agree. I think for me, coming from a divorced family, a little quick story about me. My parents got divorced when I was 8. The judge called me into chambers and he said, so who do you want to live with? And I said, well, you have the robe on. I don't know, but if I were you, I would divide my time 50-50 and I would keep me in a 3-mile radius so I could stay in the same school and see my friends. And he said, young lady, I'll be right back. And he went out to the courtroom, asked my parents, do you know your daughter just said, I trust you agree. I trust you agree. And came back and it was resolved. And my trajectory was always, I don't want to ever be what my parents were, so I'm going to work really hard on a healthy marriage and work on it, and then see what goes wrong with all of my clients and try to make it better. And that's been a gift, quite frankly, to me, not having a great role model, you know, as a young child, and then seeing what goes wrong. Is it emotional? Yes. Is it difficult? Yes. We had a client pass away a week ago, and we fought hard for her, and we protected her and her children, and it was devastating because we care, right? We're passionate about what we do.
What do you love most about your job?
I see people at their worst when they first come to us, and then I know that their next chapter is going to be better before they see it.
Were you going to say
that?
No.
Oh.
No. I had bought a house and I was walking down the street, kind of getting to know my neighbors. And this Southern woman was out in front of her yard, and I said, hi, I had these 2 little kids. And I said, well, you know, I'm going through a divorce. She goes, oh, honey, I've been through 3 of them. She goes, just think of it as a car wash, honey. You go in, you're all dirty and muddy, and then you come out shiny and new.
I like that.
It's true. I call it a limbo.
I may use that, and I may take that one.
It's better than my limbo. I always call it a limbo. It's this it's this limbo that you're in, and it's not your life. There's a next chapter on the other side. You've lived a life. There's a beautiful life ahead of you. This is just the limbo. You just need to get out of this waiting room. Once you're out of the waiting room, there's a next chapter, and you can get to that next chapter. And so like Vikki, what I enjoy about this job is hopefully assisting and helping and supporting people get to that next chapter. Oftentimes, we don't get to see them in that next chapter, but every once in a while, I get to get a card or, you know, something, or a phone call or a follow-up, and somebody tells me how happy they are or this happened. And it's great to see, because most people that we are dealing with, but for the prenuptial agreement planning, because that's usually happy.
I mean, I break up a couple marriages, I'm not going to lie. I'm not.
No, I mean, I
have to be honest.
Yeah, but I think we're breaking up before the wedding.
We're doing them a mitzvah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, we are. We are doing them a mitzvah.
Am I being sexist by saying that more women need to step up and know what's going on about their family finances? Because, again, I'm a real estate broker. And I say, like you, like I come into people's lives in the best and the worst times, right?
Yeah.
And there are many, many, many times and stories that I can remember about women saying, I had no fucking idea. A mortgage wasn't paid, life insurance wasn't paid. I mean, it's like they are in shambles.
Yeah.
But then they said, I never asked. I never asked to look. Do you see that that's more a woman thing? I mean, do you feel like
yes,
you're oftentimes saying, what were you doing? And you like, why weren't you? And not in a judgmental way, because I know that I have been guilty of that in many parts of my life, where I just don't want to deal with it. I got too much going on, and I don't want to deal, so I want somebody else to deal with it. I found myself in trouble.
Yeah, my advice is it's okay to delegate that task if we see it as a task, whether it's bill paying or checking your credit card statements to make sure there's no fraudulent activity or whatever it is. It's okay to delegate that task, to say that you may be the person responsible in our partnership to do that, to accomplish that. But never be so blind as to not have access to it. I think everybody should be informed. There should be no secrets. If there is a new account that's being opened up, both people should know that the account is being opened up. Information is power. Like, you need to share information. You need to want to know what's going on. I don't like to pour salt on a wound, but you're right. So many people come to us and they say, I should have known, I should have asked, I should have seen, I should have. So as long as there is delegation is okay, just don't lose access to the information.
And I think, agree 100%, I think what women need to do more is say, who's the financial advisor? I say it's your A team of experts. So who are your experts, and let me have access to them. I don't need to bother you, honey. I need to know who my financial advisor is, who's my accountant, right? Who's our insurance broker, so that at least I know. And we should have quarterly meetings so you can enlighten me, honey. I want to learn with you. I want to learn about our finances. I want to grow together. Those are important questions and comments. But today I had a consult with a woman, and she said, I asked my husband because we were buying a property and they needed to see the tax return. He said, I will leave you if you ever ask me for my tax return again. Now, it's not mine, it's a joint tax return.
Right, you're signing it.
Okay, so he's e-signing for her. And she said, so I have no idea, I feel stupid. I don't know what the tax return says. I don't work. I know we have 5 properties. I think he has retirement. I saw something once. The mail doesn't come to the house. I said, okay, there's a couple things we can do. You can go get a transcript. You don't want to jostle the IRS, but you can get an IRS transcript, and then we can maybe figure out what he's earning. Stay calm. It's okay. We can do other things to find out what the assets look like before we file. So I agree. I think women are getting more informed and more empowered since I started practicing only 27 years ago. Today, women are starting to get into the conversation more. They're earning more. They have powerful roles. They're at seats with big people at big tables, which is really important.
But there's actually, we had a financial advisor here who was a female, and she said that there are so many women that when they have the joint advisor, that the male financial advisor basically kind of just is,
impartial to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like they don't exist.
Yeah, you
It's
can
all
email, but
accountants.
we create questions. Like, hi, I was just curious. I Googled this. Could you just tell me, where our assets are and how much interest we're earning? We have ways to get
yeah,
around
no, of
that,
course, of
so that
course,
they
of
can just say, oh, here's the answer, so that you can actually get that Q&A with somebody, and just don't be afraid. To the women in the room, ask questions, ask for documents. Don't be afraid to speak up. This is your financial life.
But
Build
to
your
say
team.
not to be afraid, the thing is that she doesn't have a job. I'm going to leave you if you ask me. So what are you going to do?
So women are slick. Come on, ladies.
Listen,
You can figure this out.
Women are slick, and I have always said to my kids that you have to have your own money. You have to have.
You need
your
a
own
Corvette account or a Chanel account. Everybody needs a separate account. So you can do whatever you want, and my husband can go buy, his car parts and his hats, whatever he's interested in, because that's fine, and let him do it. And I buy my Chanel bags and nobody bothers me. I think everyone should have a separate account, and then I think everyone should have a joint account.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion.
Agreed. And there's multiple ways to do it, whether you make an agreement that we are only pooling a percentage of our money together. Some people do that, where they determine that, 50% of my money and 50% of your money is going to go into this account, or you're going to do it where somebody's putting 90% and you're only contributing 10%. But there should be a conversation, and this is all the reason why you have a prenuptial agreement and you have this conversation ahead of time.
But you
How
have
do
to
you-
keep going during the course of the relationship.
Always.
Right, because
But
it's
it's-
not just the beginning, right?
But the reason why prenuptial agreements are so great is because so many people should be having this conversation before they get married. You can save yourself a lot of heartache and a lot of money if you actually have this conversation before you get married, to make sure you're on the same page. Some people should just not be married. And they only realize too late.
Right,
that-
they were raised differently as it relates to finances. Maybe they had a spender for a mom and a saver for a dad, and all of a sudden two worlds become one, and they're looking at your supermarket bill. Why are you going to the fancy place when you're going to Cinderella and you should go to ShopRite? I mean, these are things that people fight over.
That will rip your relationship. Money, what did they say?
Yeah, it's one of the
Money and
most-
sex. Money and sex, that's it.
Well, sex is a whole different different ballgame. That's another topic we have to talk about.
Okay, I'm going to open up, we've probably got time for 5 quick questions, but I know Sophia had a bunch. Okay, so she gets one though.
Thanks for talking about generational wealth. You know, that's something that is important to me now that both my boys are married and would not do a prenup. So we're going to deal with the trust with you. One thing, the changes in laws. Having been divorced, and I was the breadwinner, and shouldn't there be a change to law that says there's a cap as to a split of 50-50 now that the kids are grown? College is paid for, they're off on their own. Do you think that there should be change in law to provide for that?
So are you talking about when people are getting divorced, or are you just saying
They're
post?
getting divorced, and now you're going to split 50-50.
Well, it's an equitable distribution
So
state,
you talk about someone, 400 million versus someone who's got $10,000 in the bank.
right?
The kids are grown.
Yeah.
Should
You
that
can make an
spouse
argument.
get 200 million just because they were married?
Well, we're going to always fight for
Right,
our.
I mean, like,
We're going to fight
How
no
did you
matter
get the
what.
200 million?
Equitable distribution has all these different, right, statutory requirements. So how long you're married, who's bringing money into the relationship, how did you earn it, can you go back to the workforce? So you can make these arguments, but most of the time, if you're married for a long period of time, it is equal. Would I love to change most of the laws in the state? Absolutely, because I think they are antiquated and archaic. And I think it's a very valid point, but it only works depending on who you represent, right? When you represent the stay-at-home wife, that's not going to work, but you're representing the breadwinner, sure, you know?
Which could be the woman.
Yeah, of course, and it is in a lot of cases, Sophia. It is. So it's a great question, and yes, we would.
let me ask you a quick question. So the no fault, okay, so New York is a no fault state. So my husband, you know, sleeps with 1,400 hookers. It does not matter, right?
Well,
So-
it does.
Okay, so
Hookers
so
matter.
so
Hookers
Hookers
matter.
matter.
what is the difference between a no fault state and a state?
So you no longer need to have a reason to get divorced. You can say that we have irreconcilable differences, and those differences were of such a magnitude that there's no reasonable prospect of reconciliation. Now, there is, however, a claim for marital waste or dissipation, meaning that somebody has used marital income or marital assets for non-marital purposes. So in your
Sex,
example
drugs, and rock and
of
roll.
sex, drugs, rock and roll, so in your example of 1,400 hookers, and I've had plenty of those cases
Yes.
where those 1,400 hookers cost money.
Yeah, at the Hustler Club, we had a bill for $60,000.
That's right.
And we got our client half the money back.
That's right.
We
okay,
talked
wait.
earlier about having a separate Chanel account.
Yes, I know you have a
Wait,
Chanel
wait,
account.
Yeah, I know.
How
We,
about going through a divorce, and they're like, well, we got to count her jewelry, we assess that. Her Birkin bags, her Chanel bags.
Are they gifts or are they not gifts and for specific purpose?
Not gifts, you bought them on your own.
right. Okay, I've just got to go to another question. All right.
My son just got married,
Congratulations.
and thank you, and we own our home. What do I need to do to secure that my son and my daughter get the home and not the future spouse? Because just in case they end up getting divorced, I want them to get the home. Should I put my house in a trust?
I think that's a
That's
good place to start.
Okay.
Yep,
Yep.
absolutely, with specific numerations of what you're actually looking for, and to ensure that if they get divorced, it goes directly to your children, and that they know that they have to keep the asset in a separate name. That is the critical basic components. There are so many different types of trusts out there, and it's really important for you to understand them. They're tax effective, so it's critical for them. If you bought your house when it was $500,000 and all of a sudden the capital gains, you know, it's $5 million, it's a good vehicle also to protect the asset from a tax consequence as well, but more importantly, in the event of divorce, that is critical. So absolutely, in your will, in a trust.
And thinking about whether you want this to be a generational home or a generational asset, because sometimes you can build a trust that's not just in your next immediate generation for your son, for example. It could be a property that you want to leave for your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren. And so that's all part of estate planning, where you can also build multi-generational trusts to protect not only the asset in the current generation, but to keep it going for future
Right,
generations.
skipping, right. There's all different
We have
types of
one
trust.
more question in the back. Jackie Jones, who is the best ENT in the room? Yes, Queen, yes.
Can you give us some talking points to talk to our children about a prenup?
Sure.
They're very against it.
Absolutely. I love this. We bring all the family in together and we say, sweetheart, prenups are not romantic, but they're necessary. And let me explain to you that we love you and we love your significant spouse, or we think they're great. But guess what? Today they're great. In 10 years, they could be hooking up with the pool boy or what have you. And we may not be here to protect you. So we worked really hard on building wealth. So we want to leave our generational wealth to you, to your children, and we want to set up our estate to align with your prenuptial agreement. We want to be fair and we want to be supportive.
But if they choose to not get
That's
the
my talking points.
If they choose not to get the prenuptial agreement, you still can do your side of it by doing your estate planning and putting things as best you can I mean, they should be doing it, but you can also do your part of it by channeling it through a trust.
You can, but we need to hit hard that it is not insulating all of the hard work and all of the people that you've helped in your medical career, all right, and amassed all of this wealth to one day have it fought in a divorce court. It is not insulating it 100%.
At the end of the day, all marriage ends. Some just end in death and some end in divorce, but all marriages end. So you want to plan, it's the one time you hope for death and, and not the other way around. But
Paulina, I like that. Whoa.
But you do want to plan this together. You want to encourage them to talk about this as something that they're doing together, not something against each other. It's not an adversarial process. They're doing this together. They're embarking on this journey, this life together. They're determining what the terms of their partnership are going to be. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's not an adversarial process. And the more we talk about it in terms of a planning vehicle and less in terms of this is what happens when we get divorced, the better I think it's going to be. There's really no stigma there. Do we really want, in the event of, whether it's death or divorce, do we want the government making those decisions for us? Because that's what someone's gonna make the decision. Mm-hmm. If you don't make that decision together, then the government or the judge is gonna step in and gonna say, this is how this is gonna happen, both in death and in divorce. So take control. Control the narrative yourself.
Yeah, and I think delicately saying, Susie down the road or in my apartment building had a huge fight over her assets. All we're asking you to do in the prenup is exempt the premarital assets that you have before you walk down the aisle and anything that is acquired by gift or inheritance or your separate earnings. And then you can do whatever you want. You can put an asset in joint name. We're not stopping you from doing that. It's what we gift to you should be insulated. And then if you choose to put it in joint name, that's up to you. But we want to insulate what we're giving you. And that's the highest protection from a prenuptial agreement purpose and from a trust. So let me know if you need me to talk to your family.
One more question, so Vikki, you choose. Quick.
Do both sides need a lawyer?
Yes.
So it's basically double, like the 7,500.
It's going to save you a lot of money, sweetheart, down the line.
That's right.
There you go.
Yes, this is our advocate.
For younger people, that's a lot.
It is. A lot of times parents pay because they think it's important. We're starting to do something that nobody's doing, and it's mediating prenups. Mm-hmm. So basically, they come to us and we mediate it, and then they just really need to go. One lawyer will draft it, and the other one just needs to look at it and make any edits. That keeps costs down, and we're the ones kind of taking on the brunt of the issues, which we really enjoy and like. And then we really create a document that everyone feels comfortable with, and then we send everybody kind of on their merry way. It's a new way to handle prenuptial agreements, and we're doing more and more of that.
I mean, wouldn't you feel sick that you save up all this money, you go ahead, you give it to your kids, and then it's just like, you know, gone, or they're fighting over it. Because, you know, I mean, you go
It's
to
happening
court.
all day
Yeah,
long.
yeah.
People are living in their parents' home, they
Right.
put 500,000 down, but they put it in joint name, so now that's a gift to the marriage. That's not a gift to to your child, it's a gift to the marriage.
Right.
And that 250 is in the pot.
Right. Okay, there was one more question in the back real quick, and then we're gonna thank these ladies for coming. Go ahead.
Actually, hearing you talk, so I was thinking about the generational wealth, and when I got married, we had nothing, so you didn't even think about it, your parents didn't have anything. So, no prenup, that was not even a discussion. I went through a divorce, realized it was all about financial conversation and that. And as you're talking, I'm actually thinking in my head, whenever you go and do your health insurance, they say, did you have a life-changing event?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this is something I gotta say to my kids.
Yeah.
Did you have a life-changing event? Did you have children? Then you need to look at finances and reassess, how do you share that among each other, especially if someone's choosing to, you know, step back from their career?
Mhm.
Because that's what happened in my case.
Yes.
You know, so I'm just thinking, I'm just having kind of a conversation, but I think for me, it gave me like a reason I could talk to my kid and say, hey, you just had a child. That's a life-changing event. You're changing your health insurance. Maybe you need to talk about what you're doing with the rest of your finances. Who's taking ownership? Who's going to make more money? Who's going to pay for schools? So it's more of a comment.
That's a great
Yeah,
checklist
absolutely,
point.
absolutely.
And prenuptial agreements are living, breathing documents. You can amend them, you can modify them in the future, as long as you have it set up. Before you get married, there's always ways to modify it based on that life-changing event. So that's a very good point.
Yeah.
I want to thank you ladies for coming and enlightening us. Thank you. And the cards for Vikki and Paulina are on there, but everybody will get a thank you for coming email, and they will have your contact information, and they're here for any quick questions that you have on your way out. But thanks for coming, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.